Hello everybody, welcome to my video. My name is Joff and this is TDD Development Screencast. In this episode is a continuation of the search functionality which is coming close to an end. And in the previous video we spoke that we are gonna be creating an implementation of the search service that will be actually making real calls to the network. So in this episode we are gonna be doing that. So let's go ahead and see how we are gonna start working on that one. Essentially we'll start from the test. So let's go ahead and create a new test. So I'm gonna name this because what we have so far is an in-memory search service and we have an appropriate test for that. The one that will be making the real calls, I'll name a remote search service. And of course we need a test for that. And we're gonna leverage the contract that we came up with in the previous episode in order to make this implementation. So let's see how everything works together. And I believe this is really good. So let's see. So as I said, I'm gonna name this a remote search service test. I'll close this one. And this test has to derive from the search contract, the search service contract. And if I implement all these functions, so what I have to do is I have to provide, so each of these functions has to return an implementation of a search service that will have to satisfy the tests in the contract. So that's the essence of the contract test. So let's go ahead and see how we'll go about that. So first I would like to make this little formatting here so we can see the code well. And another thing is that as I'm gonna go through all these steps in forming and shaping this remote search service that we are gonna be coming up with, all these functions here, if I run the tests, they're gonna fail. So I'm gonna have 4 failing tests because all of these are not implemented yet. And the thing is that I don't want to make intermediate commits for these ones because I don't want to have commits where I have failing tests. So in that sense, I have to be, procrastinate making commits in order to to be able to, if I go in a wrong direction in some point, I'll be able to roll back everything at once. So let's go ahead and see how we can approach this. So basically I have prepared a sort of a specification. I have a specification here of how the search endpoint would look like. And this is something that I'm planning to create for the future episode where we will actually plug everything together and see how everything's gonna work. So essentially we have a search endpoint that is a get call, and it takes a keyword as a parameter. And this is an example how we'll be able to call it. And then it would return 200 with returning a list of matches that it's gonna find, or an empty array if there are no matches. Or if there is an error, it's gonna return 400 something, let's say 403, 406, something like that. And additionally a message. So typically how we can do this in Android is I'm using Retrofit, and Retrofit allows us to just define an interface with annotations to do this, and it's gonna come up with its own implementation, so we don't have to worry about much. Essentially the interface would look something like this. Let's say search API, and I'll create a function. Let's say find matches, and it takes a query. I think it was named keyword, right? And that's a query which is string, and it returns a list of string. So Retrofit is capable to handle this for me, so I don't have to do the transformation myself. It will do it by itself. So whatever JSON comes, it will transform based on the types that I'm defining here. And of course I have to tell it that it's gonna be a get call, and it will reach to slash search. Yeah. So this is essentially how we can define the API. And let's move this because this is going to be a production type, a production interface. I'll move it in the production source instead of the test because right now I have it internally here in the test. So let's move it. So this should allow me. Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, it's not allowing me to do this right away. But from here, I think, once extracted out of the class, I can actually do that. Instead of leaving the same source, I have to put it in the actual source. And that's my interface. It's ready to be used. I'll do a little formatting here so we can see everything. So yeah. Now what I'm thinking of is the remote search service that I'll be coming up with is gonna take this search API as a dependency, and then it's gonna use that one to make the calls. So let's go ahead and implement that one. So I need to first, let's say, start with the offline search service. So I'll create first or let's maybe directly return remote search service. Now it doesn't exist. Here it will take an API, and the API it's gonna be a, let's say, an offline search API. Let's first create the offline search API. Basically, that's gonna be a stub that will just throw an exception saying that the device is offline. So it's gonna be a class internal here because it's relevant only for this test, and it would derive from the search API that I have, and of course it has to implement the method, but it will just throw, as I said, an IO exception, let's say. Because when a device is offline or when there is some connection problem or something, it might throw different exceptions, but all of them are in a way subtypes of the IO exceptions. So if I catch an IO exception here, I'll cover all of them. So I think it's gonna be fine. So this stub, as I said, is relevant here for this test, so I'm gonna just leave it here internally. And now I have to come up with this remote search service. Let's go ahead and create a class. This one's gonna be a production class. So I'm gonna put it in a production source. I'll name this search API. It's gonna be a search API type, and this is a search service. I'll move it on the right side. So this is basically a whole little formatting here. So that's my class, and it will have to implement the find matches from the search service, basically. Cool. Let's maybe do this formatting as well. So now this is not implemented, and if I run the tests, this is the test that basically is what we are working on right now. It says that it expects a connection unavailable exception, but it's not implemented. So here, if I just throw a connection unavailable exception, it will make the test pass, which is cool. But as I said, I don't want to make now the commit because I'll have 3 failing tests and I don't want that. So I'll procrastinate a bit. So essentially I have to make a call to the search API to fetch the items, and this will happen if there is an exception making this call. So let's go ahead and continue first with the other ones. Now let's say I just want to make this call in order to be able to come up with a try catch in the find matches. So let's say a search service with I can implement next one. So I'll return a search remote search service, and here I'll pass say I don't know, that one was offline search service, this one will be, let's say, an OK search service. Or maybe available. So yeah, let's name it available search service. Excuse me. And here I'll pass the available values. So it's gonna just return back the values that I'm gonna pass there. That one's gonna be a stop as well. Available values. Let's do a little formatting here as well. And that's gonna be a val, and it will return the available values. So essentially this available search service has to act as the real backend. Now, according to the specs here, what I have to do, I have to return matches, and basically I can, based on the specs, I can assume that it will just return back a list of strings. So yeah, here I do available values, filter. It contains the query. And I'll also ignore the case. So the case sensitivity would be turned off. And if I run now, I should have two. No, there is no. I'm still having a failing test because here I'm not making the call. And what I have to do is search service, find matches for the query, and I have to wrap this in a try catch, and this one's gonna be the IO exception. That's gonna be the IO exception that is thrown from my offline search API. So this is the exception. So now if I run, both tests will pass, I assume. Yeah, cool. So now let's go ahead and continue with, I don't know, let's say the search service without. That one's gonna be, that's first. Oh yeah, I was thinking about do some formatting, but I can deal with that later. So return remote search service, and here let's make it slightly smaller. Here I'll pass available search service, but now I have to. This one has to be without the available values, so I can just reverse them and use them as reverse. Something like so here I have reversed values, and it's gonna be the available values map it reversed. And if I run, it should work as well. Yeah, it does. And the last one is the unavailable search service. So this is the situation when we have, let's say, 400 or something like that. So basically the error response. So I have to first mimic it and then see how we can handle that. So we would return a remote search service. And here I would say unavailable search API. So yet another stop, and of course that's relevant again only here in this test, so I'm gonna leave it here. Now move it down here. So what did I do? Yeah. Okay, I did a typo here. Unavailable search API, and this one will throw a HTTP exception with bad response. And a bad response is gonna be a response error, which will have let's say 406. That means that let's say the query is unacceptable, and that would be a response body, or maybe error body to make it more clear. That's also local variable, and that's gonna be response body create. I think the media type can be null, I don't care, but here I need to, this one has to be, let's say, a bad query. Not that it matters a lot at this case, but yeah. So that's gonna be the exception that's gonna be thrown, but of course I'm not handling it, so this test will keep failing. And it says now it's not unimplemented, but instead it says there has to be a bad search exception, but instead we have an HTTP exception, so we have to do this transformation. Okay, so here we have to also catch a HTTP exception. HTTP exception, and transform that one into a bad search exception. Now, of course, for example, and now we have all the tests passing. Now, of course, for example, if I had here, let's say if I had different in the specs, if I had different 400s that I had to deal with, here I can, for example, also use the error code from the HTTP exception in order to come up with different, like to map it to different domain exception in a way. But because right now for this example I have only this one, this is gonna be enough. So now I have all the tests passing, which means I can check this in. Now say remote introduced a remote search service, and that's it. And now I think the remote search service as a class, the implementation looks fine, but I wanted to make little arrangements here in the test. So I want to have available search service, then unavailable search. Oops. Available search. This is the bad name API. And let's check this in. Let's say oops. Improved, well, fixed a Mistake naming. Mistaken naming. It can happen, right? So I have available search API, unavailable search API, and offline search API. So essentially those are three stubs, but they are, as I said, they are relevant only here in this test. So I'm gonna just leave them here local in this class. And what I have next is I can inline this one. So I have remote search service with offline API. Then I have remote search service with unavailable API. Then I have remote search service with available API 2 times. Once with the available values and once with the reversed values. So this I think looks fine to me. And let's make sure all the tests are still green. Cool. And let's make sure we are. Oh yeah. So let's check this in. Improved. Test code. Cool. I think we are running around 20 minutes already. So the idea is to plug now this remote search service into a real into an application and see how really it's gonna work. But as I said, the service I haven't created yet, and that's something that I'm gonna do off the cast. But also now jumping in and doing this, it's gonna take a little more time. So I think I'm gonna split into another video, which means that what we've done so far is enough for this episode. So let's actually wrap this up. I think it really showed the essence of the contract that we came up with in the last video. So we leverage the contract in order to come up with any new implementation that we want. Right now, for example, we came up with a remote search service, but essentially it's a new implementation. We can come up with any implementation of the remote of the search service, and all it has to do is we need to just make sure that it passes the contract tests. So that's really powerful in my opinion. And yeah, I think we just succeeded. We are gonna see how we can plug this and use it in a real app in the next video. But until then, I just want to say thank you for the time and the attention. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe and put some likes on the videos. And I'm gonna catch you in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye.